Hi, my name is Anshi, and just to start off, I just want to say I loved all the previous presentations, and I feel like they're all so important and cover these amazing intersections, which is basically what the summit is about. So I'm excited to share my 2 cents, and hopefully it resonates with some of you guys. While this does incorporate some of my personal story, and I'll be talking a little bit about myself to put this in context, a lot of my presentation is also related to advocacy because it offers some solutions and really puts it in a global context, because this issue has been coming up a lot, especially among South Asian communities. And I feel like it's important to address the intersectionality of these two topics, advocacy and personal stories. So yeah, pursuing relaxing hobbies versus this concept of productive leisure. And I'll be kind of going into hustle culture as well. So first, just a little bit about me. I'm a rising junior from Maryland, and personally, I've struggled with anxiety and basically just the struggle to conform to this society standard of hustle culture, and always feeling the need to be productive or doing something meaningful with my time, or what society deems as meaningful. And that's kind of what I'll be breaking down in my presentation. So this is just an overall overview of what's been happening in the world, just especially after we went through a global pandemic. And obviously there was this need for a sense of control. And for me personally, putting my efforts into something I could control, and this idea of having a choice over how my life is dictated during a time of unrest and uncertainty, that was very important to me. And so I poured a lot of attention into my hobbies, which happened to be creative writing, hiking, journaling, viola, etc. But during this time, as a byproduct or maybe as a side hustle, a lot of people uh, reverted these hobbies into sort of a goal-oriented leisure. For example, there were 7.5 million sales on Etsy in 2022. And at the height of the pandemic, people were baking, crafting, journaling, and also using these as a side hustle to kind of alleviate financial burdens, which leads to this idea of hustle culture that was really perpetrated over the past few years. Which I'll just touch on a little bit about motivation marketing, especially as high schoolers and as college students. A lot of people feel as though they need to be doing something productive at all times, and it's actually a marketing strategy which can be very detrimental to mental health and create these factions of self-actualization, people and economic, and these sources of motivation are what cultivate our personal bonds to each other. Like for example, in terms of self-actualization or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's when you feel like you've achieved your full potential. And for a lot of people, unfortunately, achieving your full potential is related to economic stability, or this concept of stability. And for me personally, stability was something I was obsessed with, to the point where I tried to control certain aspects of my life, to the unhealthy food habits, to a lack of self-esteem, to this need to control what I was doing and how long I was spending on social media and downloading all these motivational apps, which really just sucked a lot of my mental energy for social aspects of my life, which I felt like had played a role with this motivation marketing that society's kind of pushing forward. And as I said previously, hobbies have intersections with your day-to-day life, and there's a point at which hobbies, what brings you joy, can lead to negative self-perceptions. I mentioned earlier, I find an outlet of expression through writing, through journalism. I believe there's a very strong correlation between good journalism and improved mental health strategies, reading and hiking. However, there's this, especially on social media and college readiness and all of this, just that's heaped on you, especially as you become older. Finding the spike, finding what makes you you. Too often, hobbies have been conflagrated with what makes you you, and you need to be very good at it for it to have meaning, which is very detrimental to one's mental health. And especially in my community, having a thing or having a spike is very important, and it has such undue burdens on students that they need to figure out their life before they're ready to. I mean, how are we supposed to know as teenagers what we really want to do with our lives? So hobbies in this way can be viewed as a productive leisure technique. And as I mentioned before, too often we get caught up in these, are stressors worthy enough? Do we need to find a balance? Like, what is balance? And it shapes this work culture that we have, especially this whole concept of a student work life balance. And that's something I've definitely struggled with over the years. And I'm sure a lot of people at this stage of their lives definitely as well. So, as I mentioned earlier, consumerism, validation, and hustle culture have been prominent among Gen Z, especially. Only 14% of Americans take over 2 weeks off for vacation, and a study by Nature Medicine has shown that this leads to a drastic drop in happiness levels. And especially because, as I mentioned earlier, you get caught up in these apps that cater to do more in less time, and that we all have the same 24 hours in every day. And obviously, that is not true. Obviously, as students, we have to take time for ourselves. We have to take time to truly understand ourselves and use our hobbies to make us better people, make us more empathetic. And that's something we should shift our mindset towards, which is what I am going to conclude with: reframing your mindset. And obviously, it sounds a lot more daunting than it actually is. And for the last few whatever time I have left, I'll just talk about my personal journey with this concept. And for me, what really works is putting your hobbies in context, in reframing your approach to how you get joy out of your hobbies. Is this making me relax? Like, is it becoming more of a job to me, or is this intrinsic motivation still going to stay with me and support me when I need a lifeline? For example, for writing, I've taken a break. I used to be obsessed with the idea of getting published. And when I achieved that goal, it became more of a standard. And hobbies should never be a standard. And that is what I'm going to close off with today. And I know I'm going a little over time, so I'm sorry about that. But just as an overarching message to anyone who is struggling with balancing their work life balance and being overwhelmed with this idea of hustle culture, it's always important to go back to your roots and analyze why you started in the first place. And if it's truly burning you out, this idea of taking breaks shouldn't be something that's overwhelming or something that's a burden to others, because you come first in the end. And it's important to share what you're feeling with others. And thank you so much for listening.